That was Mother Mary Simon, and she eventually married Abraham Wellikoff.
Your mother?
My mother, right.
Do you know when the picture was taken?
The picture must have been taken the late part of the 1890s, because my brother was born in 1904, so she got married about 1902, so this must have been the 1895, something like that. Yeah.
And that was probably the only year that you could have gotten that picture, right, Mother? How soon after that did your father die?
Well, let's see, how old was I? I must have been about 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old.
Bring it up closer, we'll take a couple
So
closer.
6, and my father died, I think I was 10 or 11, so 4 years later. 4 or 5 years later. His life.
What are we talking about?
My father.
Father.
He worked too hard. He was a mechanic. He worked in a factory, and his brother owned a factory, and he would come to New York from Brooklyn, after working in Brooklyn, and spend the time doing work there after working so hard all day long. So he overworked himself, and the result was that he developed a heart attack and that he died.
I can see a little bit of Lil in her.
This is my father's sister. Now these were they were real brothers and sisters, because I think I told you that my grandmother, my original grandmother, her mother, left her husband in Poland, just ran away because she didn't like him. And she my father's father was apparently a cruel man, although he didn't show it to me, and so his wife disappeared, and she left 2 children, Rose and Abraham, and my grandfather finally married her sister and had 3 children with her after 7 years of waiting.
So that your father then was the oldest of his brothers.
He was the oldest.
His brother was
much younger. He was a half-brother, really.
Yeah.
But my father was a very generous person. It was a Wellikoff syndrome, being overkind. And many Wellikoffs have that.
Rose was never married?
She was married to Joe Goldberg, and he was a photographer. This must have been a picture that he took. But they had no children, no. And she was a wonderful woman. I loved her. She was so wonderful. She was such a wonderful aunt. I'm just sorry that when I think back at now that I didn't spend a lot of time with her or do things for her that she could have appreciated. She was so wonderful.
Who? Now we just have the
His name is Joe. His name was Joe Simon. He was my mother's brother, and he was a very handsome man and very temperamental. And he was married. And he had 1 daughter, and apparently his wife and he broke up and were divorced, and he never saw his daughter again because his wife went off with her and never got back to her.
Was he a smart person or just
He was very temperamental, very temperamental, like my brother Lou. Temperamental, very emotional, but very handsome and very nice guy. And he finally married. He ended up by marrying a cousin, but had no other children. But he was such a good man. I really loved him.
Good or good looking?
Good looking and good.
And good too?
Yes, I loved him. In fact, when I was young, I fell in love with him because he was so handsome.
Okay. Who's again? I think I missed at the beginning. Who's
Simon.
What's your first name?
Bella. And she was a nice person, but not that close. But I remember they visited my mother once after my father had died. They visited us quite often. And I remember them saying, why don't we adopt Gertrude? Because my mother had 8 children, they had none. But they just never got around to doing it.
Well, there may be other reasons too, Mother.
Yeah. Uncle James and his wife Sarah. And he was a very nice guy.
And he was also a Simon?
He was a Simon, Uncle James. He was my mother's brother. Very good looking and a very nice guy, very warm and very loving. But his wife was very snobbish towards us.
Did they have any children?
They had 2 children, and we could visit them. Larry Simon lives in Boca Raton, and he married a girl from Australia when he was in the army.
Did we ever meet him?
You must have met him at my 40th wedding anniversary. He was there. And Uncle James was a very nice guy. His wife was very aloof because she felt superior And her relatives owned the Tiptoe Inn, which was a very classy, so she felt superior because we were poor and they were well-to-do. And I had a date with her son, Ed Simon, and this was when we were 15, 16 years old. We kind of felt we were attracted to one another, and he took me out once. And he was going to camp. He promised to write to me, but I could see the expression on his face when he acted warm towards me, and she must have told him not to see me anymore. So I never heard from him again. I was very heartbroken.
Of course, he was a first cousin, so you shouldn't have gone for him anyway.
Yeah, yeah. But I really like him. He lives in Palm Greens. I haven't seen him in years.
I remember Eddie Simon. I met him
You
when
do?
I was about 4 or 5. He came to visit, and he took me
I
out,
can't see you, Mary.
and I had my first hot fudge sundae.
Really? With Eddie Simon?
With Eddie Simon.
Mary, I can't see you.
That's what I remember about Eddie Simon. I was
Really?
about 4 or 5.
Really? Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
I met. It was in New York City.
Oh, I must have gone to his
To his office or something. We were
right,
in
right,
the
right.
office
That must have been
building.
it. Yeah, yeah. He was a very nice guy. Very. I really.
Recent picture, isn't it?
That's when he was older. Yeah,
He was older. Yes.
How old was it? When was this picture taken,
Oh,
roughly?
this was a long time ago. He died about 25, 30 years ago. Sure.
Oh.
Looks like it's in the 30s or so.
Yeah. He was a very nice guy.
And next to it is when he was a young man.
Yeah, right.
Where's that?
Next to
Right there.
Yeah, that's
Come
when he's
closer to
very
me.
young. That's the same guy.
A little closer to me, Gert.
Yeah, that's Uncle Joe. He was very young.
It's hard for me to work the ones who've already been.
He had different
Thank you.
people look. Yeah.
There's a woman, and what's her name?
Mrs. Rosner.
Do you remember her first name?
I don't remember her
Well,
first
that's
name.
Jeannie and
Fundamental.
And this is when she was young, and the other picture is when she
This is Jeannie's mother?
Jeannie's
And
mother.
Ray.
It's Jeannie's mother.
Yeah.
And Jeannie is now 80 some odd years old.
85.
85. So
Right.
this has got to be like,
And Jeannie was by far the youngest of the children.
Yes.
I mean,
So this
Ray,
was
my
more than
grandmother-
100 years ago.
My grandmother would have been 100 years old by now.
okay.
That's
or
right.
almost 100.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she was 50. Yeah,
Yeah.
much older.
This is 83, going to be 84.
And this
She was
is
born
when
around 86, right?
this is when she was older.
Okay, anything else? This
Well,
is, wait, stop again. This is your grandmother, Gertrude, right?
Right.
Okay, the name is Simonovich or Simon.
Well, it was changed to Simon, but had been Simonovich.
Okay, and this was taken when, about
Oh
approximately?
God. Must be taken.
That's your grandmother. Over here is your grandfather.
Right. Must be taken at least 100 years ago.
Did they have cameras?
100 years ago would be, yeah. Well, they came to America in the 1880s, I think,
Where did it come from? Do you know?
from
Oh, that's
Poland. Poland.
biography we had there.
Mhm.
Their
Pol-
daughter's biography is the one we
Right,
had.
right.
So,
Okay.
his nephew.
yeah, cousin.
This is someone who we
So
don't
it'd be
remember his name.
a cousin of mine
Okay, and it's got a Hebrew.
But-
Lived where?
who lived in Poland, and this was taken in Poland.
Okay, and is
No.
there something in Hebrew on the back?
In
Okay, flip it,
Yiddish.
flip it, let's
In
take a look.
Yiddish.
Flip it, Gertrude, so I can see.
What?
Hey, Grandma. I underneath.
Who come to
I'm at it right now, Gert. Can I see the bottom, the date? Fingers in the way, Gert. Gertrude, your finger's in the way!
Oh, I'm sorry.
1926.
1926.
So,
This might be the one that
Okay.
was made it.
Krakow.
Made it.
Krakow, that's right.
You remember the story about the niece who fell in love with a Polish soldier,
Oh, right, yeah.
and then they arranged a wedding with
Yeah,
with a
That's
a
part of
cousin.
Fiddler. Isn't
So
that
I
part
think
of
this
Fiddler?
was the guy that. This might be the guy that they had arranged the wedding.
Mhm.
You remember the story of that? That was an
Right, yeah.
interesting story.
This is the woman for whom Rebecca was named?
Right.
Who is she?
The younger woman is
Say it louder, Mary, 'cause the
Ray
kids are making.
Kritzler.
That's Ray Kritzler.
My grandmother
And the other woman?
is my great-grandmother, and Mrs. Kritzler.
You don't remember her first
Senior
name?
Mrs.
No,
Kritzler.
no, no. I never met her.
Okay.
No.
She looks sort of like a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mother-in-law's father and her mother,
Your mother, I'm sorry, who was who? I don't
They
understand.
were the Rosners.
Rosners,
Edward Rosner and what
and
was her
his
name?
wife. I didn't know his wife's name.
And who's the kid?
The kid is Sheldon Ross.
Sheldon Ross, the dentist?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
that's
See,
right,
his
yes.
name was Rosner, but he changed it to Ross.
He doesn't look like a dentist.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
We had a brownstone house on 19th Street near 4th Avenue in Brooklyn. And our next door neighbor was Mrs. Krasnevich. She had 8 children. My mother had 8 children. and they were very close friends. Because we lived there a long, long time.
Well, how long
About
and when?
25 years. Well, we moved there in 1915, and Mother died in 1938. So we lived there all that time.
Okay, next.
It's a picture of Francis, Lil, and me in our backyard. I was about 17, 75, 60.
83.
It's in the 20s.
1920 something.
Okay.
And Gertrude Bergman, my friend, and on the left is my sister Betty, and Joey is in the background, and I'm next to Betty. It's in our backyard. There's Mary, listen to me, Betty, and Lil, and Gertrude, and Francis, and my mother. This is a picture of Sydney's father's sister and her husband. He was a Gentile whom she married, and of course the family didn't accept it. So they left and they went out to the West Coast and they applied for the, what was that, when they got
Land grant.
the land grant. So they got a lot of land, and they became very, very wealthy. And they were the grandparents of Barry Bryant, whom we know very well, and Fritzy and all that family. They all intermarried because they were all Gentiles out there. New York in 1938. This picture was taken in 1938. They came to the World's Fair, and then they visited their brother and his wife and her father.
And the man in the background is
That's
is Henry Kritzler, who was my grandfather and who was the children's
closer,
great
get up
grandfather.
Of course, I try to focus out.
And in front of him was Ray Kritzler, who was the woman for whom Rebecca was named.